animals. My name is Shannon. I'm an animal sensitive and intuitive, an animal communicator, if you will, and a Reiki master practitioner here at Animal Love Languages. And if you are listening to the podcast version and not watching on YouTube and you're hearing chirping, that's not my best ventriloquist act. That is my 23-year-old feathered sidekick, Pearl Cuts. He never misses an episode. He's definitely my animal muse and all the work that I do. Today we have amazing guests all the way from New Mexico, from Tallgrass Animal Acupressure, internationally renowned teachers and leaders and innovators in the field of animal acupressure. Nancy Zidonis and Amy Snow are here with us today. This is really cool for me because I don't often get a couple of guests coming on at the same time. It's also a little nerve-wracking, so I'm hoping that we'll be able to share everyone's story and just answer all of your questions. Of course, we do these podcasts and vlogcasts for you, our wonderful, sweet community of animal lovers and pet parents and professional practitioners and aspiring professional practitioners in so many different modalities. So to start with, just because we like to share a little bit of context, we're in our third season of Let's Talk to Animals. And the first two, we really focused on talking with animal communication and energy worker practitioners primarily. In season 3, we're really tackling a deeper dive into animal communication and looking at the question that often comes up during or after a session of what next? What do we do? The animal has shared that they are nearing their end of life transition, that they're in pain or uncomfortable, that something isn't working for them with their diet or their overall quality of life. And I am not an acupressure specialist. I am not a traditional Chinese medicine specialist. I wear two hats: animal communicator and Reiki master. Those are the only two hats I wear, but I have a really good Rolodex, and I often find myself in the position of offering expert referrals. And part of the reason for doing season 3 is because this is a way I can add to my Rolodex as well, and I can share amazing professionals, whether you want to study the modality, whether you want to work with these incredible practitioners. This is a way that we become educated as animal lovers and pet parents. And so when we tackle that what's next question, we have a lot more information to work with. So Amy and Nancy, I shared with you before I pressed record that I always like to invite our guests to start by sharing a little bit about your stories. And how did you find this work? And what fuels your passion for it? And maybe a little bit about how your paths have dovetailed as well as co-founders and teachers of, in fact, one of my animal communication students is one of your most enthusiastic students, which is actually how I found you. So you are up. I would love to, whoever wants to go first, or if you want to share together, it's totally up to you.
I think Nancy should start since she's the original founder. Right, Nancy?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. So my name's Nancy Zidonis, and I'd like to say thank you for having us on the program too, Shannon. It's very nice to be here. We're excited to be here. I think it's been almost 30 years ago now, or maybe slightly more than that. I started working with humans in doing acupressure, and then I got my first horse, and it was very exciting. And I thought, there's got to be a way that acupressure really works with people very nicely. I bet you we could do something with the horses. So worked with a number of different veterinarians who 30 years ago were like, you do what and why? And so that was pretty amazing. And thankfully we had some good friends who were vets, and they were like, all right, let's sort of just make them feel good, and we'll go on with it. Well, then we videotaped a lot of the work that we did. So what they found is that there's no denying the horses moved better. Their gaits were better. The riders were happy with how they were moving under them. We worked on a lot of performance horses, hunter jumpers and dressage in particular. That sort of went on for a while. And then we decided to start teaching classes. And then we realized that, it'd be good to put this material down because there's not as many, we can reach so many more people with books, with tools, with learning resources. So that's when we created the first AccuHorse book. And again, that was a number of years ago, and things have grown since then. The books have gotten better. The classes started out with a single class, intro to equine acupressure. We now have, I want to say, 25 classes, maybe 30 when you add the hands-on with that as well. And it's a 300-hour training program. So it's been a wonderful experience taking it from something that was not even an idea, just sort of let's give this a try, and taking it to the point where we now see that there are lots of people doing this work, where it has become a real bona fide profession, and people can share their passion for animals and health with the world. And that's been very, very exciting. And I'm done, Amy. Please take over.
Well, I started my career with animals when my neighbor in New York City, in Lower Manhattan, asked me to walk his dog after school. And his dog was taller than I was. I was only 9, 10 years old, and it was a Borzoi, which is a Russian wolfhound.
Oh, yes.
And no one bothered me when I walked that dog, I can tell you, walking through all the streets of New York. So I earned a big fat 25 cents a week. And that time, I put it away for a month. I had a whole $1. That was a big deal. So
25 cents. I thought you were at least going to say like an hour, maybe a day, a week. Wow.
So that was the beginning of my love of animals. Actually, I'd loved them before, because at age 4, I started riding, horseback riding. And anyway, as time went on, I had my own dog, which was lovely. And years later, I actually was a geotechnical engineer. And when people hear that, they think, well, how did you get back into working in energy work? Well, think about it. That is subsurface energy. And what is the energy that we're doing? Talking about subsurface energy. And energy is energy, our whole world. As we were talking before we got on, that we're in late summer, and this shift in energy at this time of year in the environment communicates to the horses, dogs, cats that we work with to eat a little more, rest a little longer, take their time, because they're preparing for the even colder months. So this is all part of, I see it as a structure. But to get back to how Nancy and I got about almost 25 years ago now, we both improved all the teaching and the books, and now we have the AccuHorse Dog Cat series, videos, meridian charts, all sorts of good things for people to learn about the body's subsurface energy. And not only we talk a lot about animals, but we're sitting here, we're all energetic beings. So I don't want to lose that. And when you're talking about Reiki, you're talking about energy work. When you're talking about communication, intuition, all of that is based in the same source. So I just wanted to sort of give a framework for what we're going to be talking about.
Well, and two things pop up, and I'll attempt to do them in what feels like the right order. But the first thing is that you both shared these early experiences with animals, these direct experiences with animals. In your case, Amy, it was an enormous, but clearly very gentle and very confident dog, and then a horse as well. And Nancy, you shared that your early experiences with horses, and it feels like on some level, would you perhaps say, or have you ever felt that the animals themselves invited you on this journey?
Absolutely. We've always, I think, both agree that the animals are definitely our teachers. And every time we work on an animal, we've learned something new. So it was definitely through their invitation that we were able to step into this role.
And you really did. I mean, Nancy, you mentioned, having to kind of really tackle the kind of, you do what? Say it again. Slowly, can you spell that? Like
Absolutely.
come back later, kind of, and I feel like even in my field, in the animal communication field, I was first Reiki attuned 20 years ago, and I was even wooed out by and I didn't have anybody in my sphere, in my circle, who mirrored back to me really an interest in that or any kind of viable, path forward to do it professionally. So I ended up in oil and gas marketing, So Amy, there's a resonance there. You're right. We're definitely working with energy, and the deeper thread there is that how we work with energy matters. And a big piece of that is like when we talk, it's so difficult sometimes when I'm chatting with human animals, and I have to constantly remind myself, we're not separate. We're not different than. We're animals too. We are part of. We don't behave like it. Quite often we don't behave like it. We behave like we're either an invasive species, especially if we watch Hollywood movies about aliens. It's all too easy to figure out where they got their inspiration, taking over the planet, deforestation, sucking the planet dry and moving on, that sort of thing. But we really do belong here. And we can energetically tune back in and tap back in. And the easiest, the quickest pathway for that is love. And that, at least for me, and it feels like when we remember that we're all energy and that we're all connected and that we all have these deep and powerful relationships, and sometimes they can be life transforming, like this little guy back here, if you're watching the vlogcast version, and he's climbing up my back again because he wants to see what's going on. But the second piece that I want to address before we get too much further, that I should have asked you first, is what the heck is acupressure? Because Nancy, you brought that up. There are people who are listening who are still listening, maybe because you're fascinating to listen to because you have really interesting stories, maybe because they've listened to previous episodes and they really want to know, like, what is acupressure? How is it different than acupuncture? How is it different than Reiki? So could you just speak to that briefly about your experience, or how you just pretend I know nothing?
Okay. So acupressure works with the same points that acupuncture does, the exact same locations, except for obviously the species difference. But we work with the energy using our fingers pressure, thumb pressure, versus inserting needles to activate the energetics of each of the points. The points are located on 12 major meridians and 2 extraordinary meridians, which course through the body, head to foot, and back up and around again. It connects the body like one big ribbon of energy. And so when you activate or stimulate a point for a particular energetic that the dog or horse or person is needing at that time, there's a ripple effect throughout the body. So that's kind of the basics of it. And Amy, if you have anything that you'd like to add, please do.
Yeah, yeah, it's exactly the same. Traditional Chinese medicine, you have acupuncture, but that's using needles, obviously, to stimulate the acupressure points, the acupoints as they're known as. The thing that I want to address, though, with acupressure and traditional Chinese medicine is like in your study of Reiki, you do have to study Chinese medicine. You do have to understand Eastern pathology. And then once you have it, we call it, Nancy came up with this phrase, I think, called educated intuition. And by educated intuition, we're looking at, yes, we know where the meridians flow. We know the function and energetics of these specific points, such as if I'm having a sinus condition, which I've had this past week, I know that drainage on stomach 3, these points can help me, can help drain the fluid from my sinuses. So this is not, that's educated. And the intuition part comes in later when you really are knowledgeable enough and use the tools of acupressure, such as an assessment process that we teach and are in all our books. So once you become educated in Chinese medicine and know how to use the theories, then your intuition takes over. You see things, you know things that you would otherwise have no knowledge of. Otherwise, it would, it just looks like, oh, it's a dog. Oh, it's a cat. But suddenly you see the way that dog is walking, you see the way the dog is looking, what the attitude of the animal is. And you get to understand from an intuitive level, because we as humans are we pick up a lot of cues, especially visually, hearing, smelling. So by picking up these cues, we use that and combine it. That's how we help animals. That's how we use our, as Nancy would say, educated intuition.
Well, it makes perfect logical sense, which is something that the left brain sometimes struggles to grasp for when we're dealing on the in the subtle sciences. The left brain wants to understand everything. It wants to be able to participate in every process, and intuition is it's a big part of what I teach when I teach animal communication too. It's like we've got to find productive ways for our left brain to participate. And I love the idea of a foundational education. I mean, not just because it's necessary and ethical, but also because it gives the left brain something really productive to do, so it's not constantly trying to interfere with the intuitive pathways, which are equally viable and vital.
That's a good acknowledgement of what the left brain is doing and why that's needed. Very good.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. So here's an interest, because it's, I've had acupressure, I've had acupressure, I've had acupuncture, our dog has had acupuncture and acupressure. Some people are a bit averse to needles, and acupressure can feel like a gentler method, a gentler route to achieve the same or similar goals. Is there any difference between the two other than the method through which the pressure is applied or the energy is worked with on those meridian points? I'm just curious.
Yeah, some people do say that they not only do they enjoy, but that there's better energy connection with acupressure, because it's an exchange of your energy with the animal rather than having the intermediary of the needle.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. And then the needles, you can choose silver needles or gold needles because they themselves have an energetic quality and you would use it in different circumstances. So it kind of depends on what your intuition is about it and your feelings.
That makes sense. And, it is even occurring to me, it's like if I walked into a practitioner and they gave me a choice between acupressure and acupuncture. And I don't know if it's because I'm a highly sensitive person, but I've had acupuncture for many, many, many years. And my very first experiences of it, either I was very small or the needles they were using were very large and it hurt. And I kind of developed this ingrained, it's like a fight or flight system response in my body, where it was like they would go to put the needle in and I would kind of retract without even necessarily meaning to. And it's like, it's making me realize acupressure, you don't have to battle that. Like you don't have, it wasn't even that I was there, I was paying the practitioner. I wanted them to stick the needle in, but my body was remembering feeling pain in that point before. And it's like, man, so not having to battle that and the release of cortisol when I'm stressed out about a treatment I want,
right.
It's a subtle point, but it also is informed by the interplay, the exchange of energy between the pet and their person. Because if that animal is picking up a stress response from their human, and that human does not explain where it's coming from, maybe that human has a needle phobia, and the pet's like, oh, my human's feeling fearful or resistant. This must not be good stuff. And it's like, it has nothing to do with whether it's good for the pet or not. It has to do with that human is bringing their own stuff to the table. It's like a delicate thing to have to parse apart. And actually, and that's, I feel like acupressure is, for me, it makes me feel like okay, I can breathe. I can have a deep breath because I'm not worried about the intermediary, as you said.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
do feel like that's an issue for people sometimes. So what we want to look at, oh yeah, Amy, did you have something to add?
There's actually, it's acupressure massage, and it's called Tui Na.
Oh, wow.
And yes, the meridians run right beneath the surface of the skin. So if you're tensing up, it's not successful. The body is not releasing the stagnation that it's intending to. So in Tui Na, what we're looking at is acupressure massage, and we have a course in that as well. We have an online prep course for it, as well as we're going to be teaching it in July 1 and 2 of 2023 in Colorado. But what that's about is you're doing it's a massage form. There are many, many different techniques. The first one everybody learns is called Anfa, which just means pressure technique. And all it is if you have your thumb, you press, and you don't want to press too hard, because if you press hard, guess what? You're stopping down the energy that needs to be flowing. What your job is as an acupressurist is to encourage the chi to flow throughout the body. And by the way, I didn't say this, but Nancy and I have both been to Chinese medicine school. So we do have a fairly solid basis in understanding the theories that lie behind Chinese medicine and the Tao. So yeah, thinking about Tui Na is your body, you want it to relax and open. You might have a painful shoulder. To be able to use Tui Na, because you're using acupressure points from far away called distal points, and then you're working on what's called local points that will have that effect.
Makes sense. My best friend in the world passed away during COVID, and right before she passed, she was getting very, very involved in training for reflexology, and she would talk to me a lot about how, and I think that's the distal points you're mentioning, that, or some of them anyway, and how she would send me these charts, and I'd be like, okay, clearly this is your area, not mine. But it was fascinating to see how the points, and it's impacting things that are on the other side of the world from the body's perspective. So it's really neat. So the next question, really flows back into what you and I were chatting about earlier, Amy, which is, we do have this what's next question. It comes up all the time when I'm talking with an animal's guardian or carer or foster parent or human, forever human, where we tackle, okay, this animal is having discomfort, having digestive disturbance, having anxiety, whatever it may be. So the logical question then becomes, when do we recommend having a consultation for acupressure? Or, because many of my pet clients, especially those who live in more rural areas, struggle to find local practitioners, would it be possible, and when would it be a smart decision for that animal's guardian to learn some of these things for themselves? So that's two questions actually, but kind of how do we wrap this in, and when is it the right decision that would be the next step? Does that make sense?
It does. And
yeah, okay.
When we wrote the books and the manuals, the intent was to provide a resource so that people could read the book, learn about the points, learn the protocol, and then be confident enough to try it with their own animals. Because the way it's taught, we certainly teach people not to gouge their animals, gentle pressure,
Yes.
all of those kinds of things, being respectful, and that's really rarely an issue. So people can read through the books and gain a lot of knowledge. And one story that always sticks with me is when we were first starting, and again, we were getting the animals that no one else wanted to work on, or that the vets had given up on, and they were just very difficult. And one woman had a horse, and it had some shoulder problems and back problems, and we went out and worked on her horse, and showed her some points to do, left her with a chart, and let her work on the animal every third day. And we came back in 10 days, and we said, well, show us what you're doing. First, she was ecstatic because her horse was so much better. And she showed us the points she was working, which I don't know which chart she was looking at, but they weren't close to where the points were that we showed her that were on the chart. But what was so wonderful was she participated in her animal's health and well-being. She brought that huge amount of love and commitment to this horse. And it still gives me chills, because it was like, how could this possibly work? But the horse was way, 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 way better. And everybody was very happy. So kind of a roundabout story to talk back about intention and bringing intention to the table as well.
Yeah, I think intention is the key to everything we're doing in energy work. It's the sharing. We can say that it's love. We can say that we're sending energy. We can say we're healing energy. We can come up with all sorts of words. But what it's about is transmitting a deep sense of caring. That the animals pick up on everything. If you're working, even if you're doing an acupressure session and all your points are absolutely right, so-called, whatever that is, and you're thinking while you're working on the animal about their grocery list and what you have to pick up before you have to make dinner, that's not going to work. The whole session it's a wash. You might as well forget it. You need to be there and focus and create. It's like in Aikido, we show a little sort of way of thinking about it, that our intention is like lasers. Our eyes are like lasers. So you have to be careful not to overlook at, say, an injured area, because that's not healthy. You don't want to do that, because once we do that, you're focusing on not health, you're more focusing on the injury itself. So we really counsel people to, soften their eyes, soften how they're working with the animal, and then create the healing intent in your mind and how you're going to work with the animal. So that does not preclude all the preparation you have to do for your knowledge, and all the observation, listening, and spelling, what's called the 4 exams in Chinese medicine, to gather enough information about the animal so that you are working with them with it's serious. You're taking your time. This animal's there taking his time and her time and effort, and is dealing with issues. They want you to feel better. Another quick story is, we were in Israel, and my people we were staying with, their cat hadn't eaten, was sitting on the couch in the sick cat position. And she said, oh, she's, 18 years old. She's dying anyway. And Nancy went over and just did what we call the opening, the beginning of the process, and then a couple of points. Didn't even finish what we call the whole protocol. The cat stood up and licked down her own lung meridian, her own large intestine meridian, her own stomach meridian. And that told me in that second, these animals know their own energy. They know their own meridians. They know how to make themselves feel better. So they have their own capabilities too in their healing intent. And that cat lived to 22 years old.
Yes. Oh, that's so, I'm getting chills. That's just,
So
it's just so, it's because that intention is everything.
yeah, it just, that hit it for me. It was like, okay, I get this now. I
I mean, it's
understand it.
so beautiful to think about, if the cat is in an interspecies family and the energy of their human care is okay, you're 18, it's time. Are you going to start to go? I mean, maybe they're dreading it, but it's like that's the intention, that's the expectation that's set up. And then 1 minute of shifting that energy, and it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can't stick around for a little bit longer because I'm not really ready, but it's like about shifting. When I teach animal communication, we start with setting the intention. What I mean, when I recently got reattuned to Reiki, and began practicing professionally. And I was so new when my father was going through hospice, and I knew, if thank God one of the hospice nurses was Reiki trained, because things were happening and I was able to help my dad in ways that I did not even, like, I would just show up and my hands would follow him around. Like, as he got sicker and sicker, like my hands would follow him around at the end when he was in hospice transitioning. And it was just my intention. I mean, again, not to discount. And I have gone back and have studied and have, learned what I needed to learn. But I'm like your gal who was pressing on the wrong points, and it's like, so we can't discount that intention has its own force, its own power for good. And I want to encourage you, if you're listening or you're watching, and yeah, it can sound really intimidating. Traditional Chinese medicine, acupressure, meridians, charts, flows, points. I mean, I shared my own reaction when I saw the reflexology charts. But understand that I mean, I'm coming from a musician background, many, many decades of study practice. I was a child prodigy, and I could learn all the scales. I could learn all of the chords. I could learn all of the different ways to manipulate the notes and make them do what I want. But if I didn't, it took me a long time because there was so much pressure in that field to bring my heart. And I believe that's why I never was able to take it further, because I really wanted to. I was so gridlocked in the left brain and the structure and the process. So if you're listening, you're watching, and it's intimidating, and it can be, don't let that stop you. Understand that there is the intention that you bring to the table. Sometimes maybe the energy gets a mind of its own. Maybe you don't press on exactly the right spot, and your animal still feels better because the energy receives your intention and adjusts. We don't know. Not to say that you shouldn't study, and that is what I want to talk with you about next. We're getting close to our time, and you have so many resources. You have books, you have courses. That in itself may feel a little bit challenging. I'm going to just invite you, and maybe you have fewer than 5, maybe you have more than 5, but for somebody that's listening or watching and is just thinking, well, would this be helpful? Should I try this? Could you share like just the top reasons that new animal carers or guardians reach out to you, or just give people an idea of, is this the next step for their animal? Is it pain? Is it, what does that make sense? Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I think the reason that people seek acupressure is because it's something that they can interact with their animal on. It's an avenue to better understand their animal and themselves. And over the years, that's what keeps coming up for me. And when the most exciting occurrence is when people are, I don't want to say playing around, but they're practicing, they're learning with their animals, and then they get to feel the energy that's in their animals, and then they get to exchange that energy. It opens a whole other world to them for possibilities that there's just too many to list, because it's just a world opening event. So that's what I would say on a larger level. There's really specifics, but it's that shift of energy that's just absolutely beautiful.
The only thing I would add is not to be intimidated by it. Yes, it's good to learn more about Eastern pathology, and it's a lifelong study. You don't have to learn it all at once. We just create an open door for that process through our program. But the other thing is the animals tell us what they need.
Yeah.
You know, you'll look out at a field and you'll see two horses, kind of one horse chewing on the other horse. Well, they're on a very specific point, it's usually called spleen 21, which is what we call the chi gap point. It's the point that all chi is connected. So they take care of each other. And in fact, there was a video not long ago on Facebook, and I was looking at it. A dog, this is not nice, but it got hit by a car, and another dog was staying with him. That dog was scratching literally on spleen 21. They know energetics, and once they get used to and believe that and trust that we can help them, they will show you what they need. And the best story about that is Nancy and Sarah. Your turn.
22 years.
What?
I just said my horse of 22 years. So there's a very strong bond and a long history there. But after about year, 4 or 5, I'd go out into the field and start working with her and do an acupressure session. And one day I just thought, I'm just going to ask her. And I said, okay, Sarah, show me. And she sort of walked around a little bit, and then she lifted her inside hind and scratched up near on a stomach point. And so I worked that point, and then I stood back out of her energy field to let her integrate that. And I asked again, and then she showed me with her hind leg again to work kidney 3. So it was just, it's absolutely stunning. And we're talking, horses are big guys, and they're just so eager to talk and to be present with us, and it's really a nice gift.
And horses, and I think cats, are amazingly energetically connected to their own energy, and they have energy fields. But if you think about a horse running, stampeding, they don't bump into each other. They know their space. It's their energetic space. Dogs have a communication. And when we're doing, since we're doing Tuina and acupressure, we're talking about another form of communication, which is touch. Touch is communication. And you can have a psychic connection and an intuitive connection, but the touch has a very specific, another meaning. Animals love to be touched when it's done lovingly and caringly with healing intent. So, animals are phenomenal. I think that's why Nancy and I have been drawn to them all these years. We know how amazing they are. Just looking a little dachshund walking down the street, and I look at them and I think, oh, that dog's so wonderful.
So you must be picking that up because we have a dachshund in this very house. We do. And we've been on a wonderful healing journey with him. And I love how you share that this is an experience, because that's so much about why human carers and guardians reach out to me as well, as they want a deeper experience with their animal. They want to interact on deeper, more meaningful levels, and their own intuition is often prompting them. Maybe they're seeing something. Maybe they don't know that's why, but there's something prompting them. I always feel like the animals draw their humans to me. And so I would just say, if you're listening or watching and this is really interesting to you, then perhaps consider if this is your animal saying this is really interesting to them too. And on that note, so it's Tallgrass Animal Acupressure. No, it's Tallgrass North America, isn't it? Tallgrassnorthamerica.com is your website. And where would you direct somebody who is new and wants to start learning or studying with you? Where should they go when they hit Tallgrass North America? They sign up for your newsletter, but what's the next step? Because you guys have lots of stuff.
Yeah. Well, one thing they can do is to check out the online classes. And again, there are many to choose from. And there's a suggested sequence if you would like to go through all of them. Nothing's set in stone. If Landmark Anatomy and Acupoint Energetics calls to you, you're welcome to do that course. Courses are paid for one at a time, so it's not a huge dollar commitment. And then you can just take them as your time allows or your interest grows. And so that would be the first thing. Then also to check out the sound classes, which has a full schedule also. To find the books for our classes, we've sort of separated our websites out a little. People would want to go to animalacupressure.com. And then all the books, the charts, the videos are housed there because Tallgrass North America is in Canada, and boy, shipping to Canada, it's easier to have that separated out. So that's what I would suggest doing.
Fantastic. Amy, do you have anything to add?
Just that, make sure when you do animalacupressure.com, you have 1 C in acupressure.
Got it.
Not 2. It's 1 C. That would be the only thing. But then you can see all the books. And we do have the links to all the courses that are coming up in 2023. We start up again in the spring. The courses are done for the season for 22. And so we start up actually in February. And then there's April, and it goes right through till October of next year. So please take a look at those as well. But the best way to prepare, as Nancy said, is the online. You get going on your onlines so that you're ready for your hands-on courses.
And also on our website, if you hit on articles and blogs, there's probably 70 separate articles and blogs that you can download, look at. There's tons of charts for specific conditions, anything from osteoarthritis to anxiety to heat stroke. So it's an additional resource that we welcome people making use of that.
Fantastic. And I would also say, if you get to either website and, and you're feeling a little maybe overwhelmed or challenged, just notice, set an intention that you be guided to the resource or the course or the book or the article that best serves you and your animal right now. And just use it as yet another way that you can experience your own intuition at work and play and get curious and have fun. And whatever you land on, just experience it. Because starting is always better than not starting. So this is our practice, right? Because we live in the age of overwhelm and information overload, and let's allow our intuition to guide us through that maze to the exact resources that will best serve growing closer to our animal and living our healthiest, happiest lives together. So Amy and Nancy, such a privilege and a pleasure. I'm going to have to thank my student very much for the connection, because I'm really grateful to meet both of you and know of all the wonderful work. And shoot, I sure would love to study with you too. So maybe I can make that happen in 2023. We will see, right?
Wonderful.
But
thank you for having us, Shannon. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, such a privilege, such a joy, and truly an honor. I've absolutely loved chatting with you and loved the stories that you have to share. And for you, our beautiful listeners and viewers, thank you for your continued connection here with Let's Talk to Animals. This is a series that it's truly a labor of love. Nancy and Amy are donating their time, as am I, and of course, Mr. Pearl, who has gotten copious payment in neck feather scratches during this episode, I would say, if you've been watching the video version. But absolutely delighted to hear from you. Please do the thing. Do the thing if you are able. Give us a follow, a like, share us with a friend who loves animals or maybe needs a little extra inspiration in their life. And please do come back next week and join us for yet another amazing conversation with a practitioner and an expert who loves animals as much as you do. So sending you all our love. You can find us at animallovelanguages.com. We've got Tallgrass North America and Animal Acupressure with 1C. Bookmark those, and we will see you back very, very soon. Okay. Bye for now.